Welcome to the Buddhist Temple of Toledo. Please be seated and turn to page 2 in your liturgy books. Kata of Atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all evil karma ever committed by me since of old on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all evil karma ever committed by me since of old on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all. Nikaya 3 Refuges. Buddham Saranam Gacchami.
Saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. I take refuge in Sangha. The 5 remembrances. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape having ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I stand. This precious human life, rarely encountered, is easily lost. Now that I have life and opportunity, may I practice the Dharma wholeheartedly. Mahayana Refuge. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. In my heart, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. May I liberate suffering beings and bring them to great joy. May the compassionate spirit of love grow within me, that I may actualize the great way. Invocation of the lineage. I give thanks for the guidance of my teachers, for the lineage of teachers before them. I give thanks and offerings for their devoted practice of generosity, moral discipline, patience, joyful effort, concentration, wisdom, skillful means, unshakable vow, spiritual powers, and awakened awareness for my benefit. May their years of life be lengthened. May their vows be completely realized. And may I cultivate these perfections with their guidance. 7 practices of the Bodhisattva. I bow down in body, speech, and mind. I offer the best I have to give, both real and imagined, to fill the space between us. I regret and purify all transgressions. I rejoice in all virtues. I request you to remain until total enlightenment. I request wise and compassionate guidance. I dedicate my merit for the sake of all beings. Generating love and compassion. May all sentient beings be free from clinging and hatred, being close to some and distant from others. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from clinging and hatred. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness in the causes of happiness. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them happiness in the causes of happiness. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings be free from suffering in the causes of suffering. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will free them from suffering in the causes of suffering. Bless me to accomplish this. May all sentient beings have the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from clinging, hatred, jealousy, miserliness, doubt, pride, wrong view, ignorance, and dualistic thoughts. How wonderful it would be. May this be accomplished. I will bring them to this state. Bless me to accomplish this. Please stand for the Heart Sutra, down on page 4. Great Prajna Paramita Heart Sutra. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva practicing deep Prajna Paramita clearly saw that all 5 skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Shariputra form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form. Sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness are also like this Shariputra. All things are essentially empty, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without loss, without gain. Therefore in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, object of thought, no seeing, and so on, to no thinking, no ignorance, and also no ending of ignorance, and so on, to no old age and death, and also no ending of old age and death, no suffering, cause of suffering, cessation, path, no wisdom, and no attainment, since there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva lives by prajna paramita, with no hindrance in the mind, no hindrance, and therefore no fear, far beyond elusive thinking. Right here is nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future live by prajna paramita, attaining anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore know that prajna paramita is the great sacred mantra, the great vivid mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the supreme mantra, which completely removes all suffering. This is truth, not mere formality. Therefore set forth the prajna paramita mantra, set forth this mantra and proclaim gate gate para gate parsam gate bodhisvaha gate gate para gate parsam gate bodhisvaha gate gate para gate parsam gate bodhisvaha. Infinite realms of light and dark convey the Buddha mind. All that is and we ourselves come forth in perfect harmony. We offer this sincere and devoted practice for the many beings of the six worlds and dedicate it in grateful thanks to the strength and sound practice of the Great Heartland Sangha and its teachers. May our virtuous actions be clear from all interferences, and may our vows be fully realized. We especially dedicate these merits to all those who suffer as a result of injustices, calamity, cruelty, and war. To Gil, Joan, John, Dave, Kaijin, Sister Suzette, John, Charles, Reverend Eugen, Roger, and Diane, may they have peace and healing. And to Bill, Sean, Jim, and Laverne at the time of their deaths. And to those we hold in the silence of our hearts, as well as those whose names we now voice aloud. May we live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma, and may we realize the Buddha way together. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honor
please prepare for Zazen.
now recite the Sangha Covenant found on page 8. We, the Daishin Gokuji Sangha, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the wisdom and compassion we seek to cultivate by practice, and with deep gratitude for the teachers of this lineage and our connection to one another, covenant to support each other by upholding the precepts of doing no harm, practicing good, and actualizing good for others. Please be seated, sit comfortably so you can make eye contact with the teacher. And in a moment, we will recite the Gatha on opening the sutra, also found on page 8. Gatha on opening the sutra. The Dharma incomparably profound and infinitely subtle is rarely encountered even in millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, receive and maintain it. May we completely realize the Tathagata's true meaning.
So good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. So thank you for coming out on this very cold but very beautiful morning. There's nothing like sun on snow. It's just gorgeous. So we've been talking, as all of you know, during the winter practice period, we've been talking a lot about meditation, mindfulness. When we're walking, know that we are walking each step home, right? The intimacy of all things, full contact with the entire catastrophe, our body, our senses, our feelings, our thoughts, our surroundings. And these are all ripe fields of practice. None of them is a problem, they are it. But I also want to speak to why this is important. I mean, given everything that is going on in the world, in our country, why is this important? So when I was reflecting on my own journey to see if there would be anything relevant in my path to practice, I realized that the roots of it went way back into my childhood. into a child living in 1960s Dublin, Ireland. And at that time, 100 miles up the road, a 30-year civil war was about to start. And it was a war with deep, deep historic roots, deep societal injustice, a sectarian police force that was often brutal, into which the British Army was deployed, right? What could possibly go wrong in this scenario? But what I really want to communicate to you is how hopeless it seemed. All of my childhood, all of my early adulthood, the feeling was that nothing could solve this. Atrocity after atrocity from all sides. And 3,500 people dead, most of them civilians, in a population less than that of West Virginia. So nobody was not affected by this. And yet it did end. It ended with a workable political framework that brought an end to that murder and sectarianism, brought people around the table and to a place where the country could find a place of repair and resolution that was workable. It was not perfect. It was far from perfect. But people came to the table and they stayed there and relationships formed. So how did that happen? How did that seemingly hopeless situation, I hate to use the word resolve, how did it evolve, right? Well, people, what is it always? It's people coming together, right? It's relationship. People saying enough, people showing up, and showing up with intention. And it was led by the women of the North, regular working class, middle class women who had no expertise in any of this. And one of them said, Sadie Patterson, I think she was a trade unionist, she said, "I believe the women of Ulster will create a society in which ignorance, fear, and hate shall give place to liberty, justice, and peace." And they did it. Against all the odds, they did it. How? Well, the big one was equanimity. They actually kept their heads in the midst of this chaos and carnage. Presence and intention, literally one foot in front of the other through the streets of Belfast, through the streets of Derry. Relationship, mothers, grandmothers, aunts, sisters, neighbors, friends, all coming together across all the divides. And the divides were, it was like a chasm, but they managed to do this. And a deep faith in the ground of goodness, in this goodness of the human heart. And that was not a motto or a slogan. It was profound and it was deep. And they never doubted that this could actually come to resolution. And of course, all of this manifesting in wise and skillful response in the midst of all the horror of it. It was not easy. And this isn't a new story, right? Every society has this story in some form or another. Our country certainly does. And how is it relevant to our practice here? Well, the means sound familiar, right? Equanimity, presence, patience, relationship, this deep knowing of the goodness of the ground of being. And then the manifestation of all of this in skillful means. Because really, if your practice isn't showing up in your life, there's a problem with your practice, right? And this is the training ground, right? This is the training ground for the alleviation of our own suffering, for the suffering of the broken world, for the suffering of this broken country. And it's what all the wisdom traditions have in their heart, this manifestation of practice. St. Augustine said, pray as if everything depends upon God, work as if everything depends on self. The Buddha in the Dhammapada, you yourselves must strive. The Buddhas only point the way. Those meditative ones who tread the path are released from the bonds of Mara, right? The obstacles to our awakening, greed, anger, ignorance, their myriad offspring, what Sadie Patterson called ignorance, fear, and hate. So this meditative path, this path of practice, how do we work skillfully? How do we work skillfully with mind to manifest this? And in verse 1 of the Dhammapada, the Buddha tells us everything is led by mind. If with mind polluted one speaks or acts, then pain follows, as a wheel follows the draft ox's foot. If with mind pure one speaks or acts, then ease follows, as an ever-present shadow. Pretty succinct instructions, right? And of course, we can actually all do this just by virtue of being human. It's completely doable, even when it seems impossible, right? So I want to go back to where I first had an inkling of this truth, back to mid-1960s in Dublin, and I'm a young kid, and it's a Sunday morning, and I'm in the northern suburbs that sprang up in the 1950s, so rows and rows and rows of identical semi-detached houses, two houses sharing a common wall, shared driveway, repeat, 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 forever. This is where I lived. This was my childhood, right? And I was going to Mass. I was wearing my Sunday dress, and I was holding a Jacob's custard cream biscuit, a cookie, and that, I tell you, that was a thing of great value in my childhood, Jacob's custard cream. And it was maybe late spring, early fall, because the light was very slant, that beautiful northern light, but there was warmth in it. And you know, Ireland is a little teeny island on the edge of an ocean, so the air is always moist. There's always like a luminosity to it. And I was standing on that shared driveway between our house and the Corrigan's house, and there was a snail on the concrete, and everything was luminous, like the mica in the concrete was sparkling. The mucus trail behind the snail was sparkling. The shell was glowing. And I was looking at the snail, and then I wasn't. There was no me, there was no thinking, there was no time. And then there was me, and there was the snail, and my biscuit was on the ground. And honestly, I thought nothing of that experience. I thought that was completely normal, until 40 years later, when I learned meditation, and I have to say, in great gratitude to that snail, that the faithfulness of that snail outweighed my obsession in getting meditation right. And just touching on that, eventually, when I found a context, a path of practice, really helped me trust myself, and trust myself deeply, trust my own experience. It's a weird little story, isn't it? But we've all had moments like that, right? Moments of oneness, of deep connection, and really through no effort. I think rarely is it through effort, unless it's just a stillness, an allowing of this experience. And the feeling tone of it is this underlying belief that I'm separate just falls apart. It just falls apart naturally. But of course, these moments are within the dance of causes and conditions, right? And what they are their inclinations, their inklings, their some communication about a deep truth that really leads you into the big questions, if you're so inclined. Who am I? What is this? What is my part in all of this? And if we're lucky, we find teachers, we find a path, we find community in which to contextualize these experiences that we all have. It's a path of realization and manifestation. And it's a path that can really facilitate seeing through this solid, separate ego that we think is real, right? And it's a path where we can really put to death that paradox that I'm just a wisp of cosmic dust. That's all we are. And I am something. I am luminous light. You know that poem, the Mary Oliver poem, we say on the occasion of the Buddha's death, make of yourself a light, said the Buddha. And it winds down to the last lines where she says, clearly I am not needed, yet I feel myself as something of inexplicable value. Both of those things true. And honestly, this path is the one that has brought that all together for me. And if we're not so lucky, we don't find teachers, we don't find a community, and then there are great dangers. A crystallization, a solidifying of that experience. I want that experience back. That is the goal, right? In Zen, we say chasing a feather with a fan. Good luck with that. Or an elevation of the self. Well, maybe this experience is unique to me. Maybe it's the result of my tireless efforts, my spiritual seeking, spiritual pride, which is always to be avoided, right? Or maybe negative pride, which we don't talk about as much. I'm not worthy. This can't possibly open up to me. And that is, I feel, is even in some ways more insidious. Because it's really more socially acceptable, isn't it, to make yourself small and to make yourself luminous. I always think of that Marianne Williamson quote where she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond imagination. So how do we stay in balance on this path and in the heart of wisdom and compassion? Well, we don't make a show of our practice, right? We don't go around proclaiming our Buddhism. We have noble friends and a safe space where we can really call each other out on our bullshit, right? And not take it personally. It's like, thank you. So many times I said, thank you for telling me that. And we learned what in the I Ching is called the taming power of the small. The ability to step back, to not have to be in charge all the time, to not have to be right all the time. And the other side of that coin, to not have to be wrong all the time, right? And thus we walk the path of integration. So 40 years later, I discovered meditation. 40 years after the snail, I discovered meditation. And fortunately, I had accumulated enough suffering in those 40 years that when an opportunity presented itself, I took it. And through another weird story, I was invited into Vipassana practice, which is the meditative practice of the Theravadan tradition. Vipassana meaning seeing things as they really are. And one of the foundational texts in that practice is what our teachers have been teaching on, the Satipatthana Sutta, right? The 4 foundations of mindfulness. which I always think are like a field guide. They're a field guide to our experience. And within each of these 4 foundations are a set of instructions for investigating a particular aspect of experience, and these will all sound really familiar to you. Anyone who's been around a while, we have always done these practices. Mindfulness of the body, the body in the body, breath, the postures, walking, sitting, standing, lying down. Mindfulness of daily activities, eating, washing the dishes. Mindfulness of the body is the 4 elements, earth, water, fire, air. All of this we do here. And then the second foundation, mindfulness of feeling, Vedana, or really more accurately feeling tone, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Where am I holding on? Where am I pushing away? And of course in Zen you hear all the time, don't pick and choose. And these practices really go deeply into where we do that because it's layer upon layer upon layer, right? Mindfulness of mind, well, heart-mind, citta. The inner space of experience, thoughts, cognition, emotions. And mindfulness of qualities, Dhamma, which is really fascinating. I often wonder, like, can you imagine how granular this study was to actually parse out our experience in this way? So like in the Dhamma, we have the 5 hindrances, which we usually say are hindrances to meditation, but they're actually hindrances in our life, right? Desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, worry and restlessness, skeptical doubt. I think we probably all experience all of those every day, at least I do. The 5 aggregates, form, sensation, perception, mental reaction, consciousness. The 6 senses, which we study deeply here. The 7 factors of awakening, the 4 noble truths. Not as dogma, but as experience. You know, the Buddha famously said, don't believe anything I tell you, explore this in your own experience. So, you know, it's wonderful to trip through the mountains and the valleys, footloose and fancy-free, but it's really useful to have a map, right? And the Satipatthana Sutta is a map, but never confuse the map with the terrain, right? The map is a guide at skillful means. It's your feet on the ground right now. And in this practice, we discover that every circumstance and activity of your life is grounds for meditation. Nothing is excluded. Even what we think is just hopeless and really unpleasant, it's all fertile field for practice. And the more we do this, the more this can become the default in our lives, this ground of mindfulness. But we do have to do this practice consistently, and we can actually walk through the world like that. So if this practice is so inherent, why is it so hard? Why did the Buddha have to go through those years of trial where he almost died before on the night of his awakening he sat under the Bodhi tree and recalled a time in his childhood when he sat under the crabapple tree and watched the spring planting and just came into awareness, just relaxed, came into awareness. Well, it's because, of course, we've accumulated a lot of habitual and karmic patterns. We've learned to see the world dualistically, right, wrong, sacred, profane. We've been taught to devalue our own experience. I don't think anyone could have gone through our educational system and not have that devalued. And we've learned to live in a world of objects, right? Be they the world of form or the world of mental formation. We look at them all as objects, and if we don't really explore them, they seem solid, they seem real. So we practice, right? And concentration is the backbone of meditation. There's no getting around that, right? You have to be able to wield your mind so you can actually do this work. So we do put effort into concentration. We practice keeping our attention on a single object, on the breath. And as we do that, we find that our repetitive thoughts actually decrease. Most people find this early in practice. It's like, oh, the relief of that, right? And while we do that, our experience opens up. You're removing the obstacles to your experience. And of course, the parameter of right concentration, we talked about in the liturgy, well, what do I want to say about that? It requires that we don't judge ourselves. Come back to the breath, come back to the breath, come back to the breath, come back to the breath. This is not a failure. This actually is the practice. I know, as frustrating as that might seem, every time you do it, it's a mental push-up, as we say in beginning instruction. Every time you do it, it's a moment of awakening. Trust this process. And you know, also the process of concentration is likened to taming a wild animal. You give it a long rope and a big field, right? You don't beat the animal to death. It'll obey you, but you're not training it. So with our minds. So as concentration increases, we find that the mind gradually settles down. Thoughts lessen, emotional pressure lessens, and this is very pleasant, right? The Buddha compared this to smelting gold. You know, when you work with getting the impurities to come to the surface. And then the gold is, he said, light, soft, malleable, and bright. And this is your mind. Your mind begins to shine. And we enjoy our practice. We emphasize that a lot here. Enjoy your practice. In the Theravadan tradition, in Vipassana, there's two aspects to concentration. One is putting your attention on an object and holding it there gently. And the other is savoring that object. So we put our awareness on the breath. We enjoy the breath. It's not boot camp. And eventually we notice that meditation is our default. Like, we're not doing anything with the mind. What we're actually doing is we're relaxing the mind. It's not effort, it's relaxation. And then meditation just becomes the mind's default, mindfulness, walking through the world mindfully, each step home. And of course, when you shift your awareness or when you shift your intention to awareness, everything just naturally shifts. I really don't think there's much effort in that. You know, that what the Buddha said, you know, you'll follow the ox and going through the fields. It just naturally happens. So as the Roshi say, always remember you're practicing something. Do you want to practice your suffering, or do you want to practice your freedom? Because you do have a choice. So we just let ourselves dwell where we are without adding anything. Instead of thinking about the situation, stop separating yourself from it, right? Without falling into the story, the narrative, what are the solutions here, how will I analyze that? Just stop separating yourself from the situation and then manifest skillful means for working with it. Okamura Roshi says, Zazen is not about gaining something. It is the practice of letting go, of letting all things be as they are, and just sitting in the middle of that reality. So I want to end with a poem by an Irish poet, Pádraig Tuama. He was also a peace worker. He did a lot of reconciliation in the north and worldwide in places of conflict. And he calls the poem The Northern of Ireland, which sounds odd, but it's a play on the division. When I was growing up, if someone said Northern Ireland, which is the British name for that political unit, you knew they were Protestant and you knew they wanted union with Britain. If someone said the North of Ireland, you knew they were Catholic and you knew they wanted a united Ireland. So all kinds of tells just in how you said things. And sometimes just uttering one of those phrases could actually get you killed. So it's a really significant title. The Northern of Ireland. It is both a dignity and a difficulty to live between these names, perceiving politics in the syntax of the state. And at the end of the day, the reality is that whether we change or whether we stay the same, the questions will remain. Who are we to be with one another? And how are we to be with one another? And what to do with all these memories of all these funerals? And what about those present whose past was blasted far beyond their future? I awake, you awake, he awakes, she awakes, they awake. We awake and take this troubled beauty forward. We awake and take this troubled country forward. So may we do so. May we awake and take this troubled beauty forward for the sake of all beings, without exception, throughout space and time. May it be so.
Maybe so.
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.
Thank you all for choosing to be here today. That concludes our